When the August moon rose above Umu village, its silver glow carried more than light. It carried the sound of anticipation, like a drumbeat rolling through the heart of every woman. For in Umu, August was not just another month. It was the crown of the year, the long-awaited meeting of women, the gathering that separated the bold from the timid, the queens from the commoners. Once, the August meeting was sacred. Women came together to rebuild the market, to plan for harvest, to decide on matters of peace, and to weave unity like a great mat stretched beneath the sun. But over the years, the sacred turned into spectacle. August stopped being about community. It became a stage, a battlefield where lace wrappers gleamed like armor, geli rose higher than mountains, perfumes drifted heavier than incense, and handbags spoke louder than voices. Any woman who dared to appear in simplicity became the target of sharpened tongues. Mockery rained on her like stones. Laughter followed her like a shadow. She was crushed beneath the weight of ridicule, her dignity peeled away thread by thread. The village women had learned to fear poverty not for hunger but for humiliation. And in the middle of this fever stood three friends, Chugo, Ifeoma, and Adima. They were like firewood tied together, each one determined to burn brighter than the other, yet bound by their thirst for glory. They laughed together, plotted together, and sharpened their weapons of pride together. While the village prepared for August with whispers of joy and anxiety, these three sharpened their smiles like knives. The first drumbeat of August had sounded. A storm of vanity was rising. And though the moonlight looked calm that night, the gods already knew. By the time the sun set on August, the laughter of queens would turn into the tears of beggars. Chugo was the tallest among them, and she carried herself like a palm tree among shrubs. In her early 40s, she wore pride as if it were her second skin. When she walked through the village, people stepped aside, not out of respect, but out of fear of her tongue. For her tongue was sharper than a machete freshly whetted, and she used it recklessly. Her husband was a simple palm oil trader whose earnings dripped slowly, like oil from a stubborn bottle. Yet Chugo strutted through Umu as though she were married to a king. She was famous for saying, "This August, they will know I am not in their class." To her, the August meeting was not a gathering of women, but a throne where she must sit above all. She had already told her tailor that her lace must speak in dollars, not in naira. She wanted a geli so high that even the birds of the sky would bow before it. When other women whispered about market prices, Chugo mocked them. Let the poor argue about yam and fish. Me, I am preparing for August glory. Her arrogance was intoxicating, and she breathed it in like perfume. Yet beneath that pride lay emptiness, a house with little food, children in worn slippers, and a husband weighed down by debts he never created. But Chugo silenced her shame with one thought. In August, no one would remember her hunger if her wrapper glittered enough. Where Chugo was tall and sharp, Ifeoma was short and restless. Her body curved like the winding path of Umu's river, and her laughter was as loud as a market bell. She lived for drama. If Chugo ruled with pride, Ifeoma ruled with recklessness. She wanted attention the way a thirsty goat wanted water, desperately, noisily, without shame. Her husband had inherited 2 plots of land from his late father, treasures meant for future generations. But Ifeoma had eyes only for one thing: a Milan handbag displayed on a Lagos Instagram page. Its leather gleamed like midnight rain, its handle curved like a queen's crown. The price was madness, 4 months of her husband's salary. But Ifeoma sold 1 plot of land in secret, her heart pounding as the money passed through her hands. When I carry this bag in August, she told herself, the village will faint from envy. My enemies will choke on their jealousy. She bought imported gold jewelry to match, pieces heavy enough to shame the sun. She looked at herself in the mirror and giggled. Even the goddess of the river will be jealous of me. But what she hid from herself was bigger than her jewelry. The crack she had made in her marriage, the wound that would soon bleed. Adima was the youngest of the 3, but her hunger for status burned fiercest. She did not have the money for lace, gold, or Italian shoes, yet she was determined not to be left behind. She wanted to stand beside her friends and scatter the eyes of the village women. She wanted to silence those who called her ordinary. One evening, while her children ate watery soup, Adima locked herself in her room with her phone. Her trembling fingers downloaded a loan app. In minutes, she borrowed 450,000 Nigerian nairas, without her husband's knowledge. Her heart raced, but her lips smiled. With that money, she bought Swiss crystal lace, Italian shoes, jewelry that sparkled like fire, and a designer handbag that whispered of wealth. Every night, she rehearsed her entrance in front of the mirror, twirling like a peacock, whispering to herself, "I will pay it back quickly after August. I only need to shine once. Just once." She ignored the dark warnings written on the app. Late payment will lead to public disgrace. We contact all your people. Adima laughed nervously, convincing herself. I will pay before then. After August, I will pay. But the gods shook their heads in silence. For the lace she bought to shine would soon burn her skin with shame. The three friends met every night at Chugo's house, their voices rising above the crickets. They called their mission Operation Scatter Eyes. Like warriors preparing for battle, they compared their weapons. Chugo declared, "My lace speaks in dollars." Ifeoma laughed. "My handbag was paid for in euros." Adima's eyes glittered. "My crystal lace is so shiny that even angels will stop to admire me." They mocked the women who would come in simple wrappers, calling them village cockroaches. They practiced their walks, their poses, their smiles that could slice another woman's pride in half. Their laughter filled the night, loud and reckless, as though they had already won the battle. But beneath their noise lay shadows. Debt crouched like a tiger behind Adima. Secrets prowled around Ifeoma's stolen land. And shame hovered like a vulture above Chugo's pride. Even as they laughed, the ground trembled slightly, as though the ancestors were warning them. The cloth of pride is beautiful, but it tears in public. Still, the women danced in their blindness. They told themselves the August meeting would be their coronation. They did not know it would be their downfall. While Chugo, Ifeoma, and Adima sharpened their vanity, one woman sat quietly in her small compound, weaving peace into her heart. Her name was Dut. She was not rich, neither was she poor, she was content. Her husband farmed yam, and her children fetched water from the stream. She had no Dubai lace, no Italian shoes, no gold from Dubai or Milan. What she had was dignity, and she wore it like a wrapper that never faded. When her friends mocked her, Dut only smiled. "You will disgrace yourself," they told her. "Look at you, coming to August in this your tired wrapper. People will laugh until their ribs break." Dut replied calmly, "I only hope the lace and gold you are borrowing will not shine brighter than your peace of mind." Her words were like quiet arrows, piercing their laughter, but they brushed her aside. To them, Dut was an insect crawling on the runway of Queens. Yet in the silence of the night, her words remained, echoing in their hearts like the low beat of a distant drum. As the August meeting drew near, the market of Umu became a stage for gossip. Women whispered about who was preparing what, whose lace had arrived from Lagos, whose shoes were flown in from Italy, whose perfumes smelled of Paris. The traders no longer sold goods. They sold pride, measuring worth by wrappers and geli. When Chugo walked past, women whispered, "See her neck. Dubai lace will soon cover it." When Ifeoma strutted in, balancing her basket as if it were a crown, someone muttered, "She sold land for handbag. Is it true?" When Adima passed, her eyes glowing with excitement, the whispers followed her like dust. "Loan money. Mark my words. Loan money." Dut moved through the same market quietly, buying only what she needed. Palm oil, yam, fish. No whispers followed her. No one cared about her wrapper or her sandals. Yet, in her quietness lay a strength greater than gold. She carried herself without fear, because she owed no one, borrowed from no one, and pretended to be no one. 3 nights before the meeting, the trio gathered again in Chugo's house. The moon was bright, the palm wine sweet, and their tongues sharper than ever. They laughed until tears rolled down their cheeks, mocking the women they called village cockroaches. "Imagine Dut with her old wrapper," Chugo sneered. "When she enters, We will spray perfume until she suffocates. She will hide her face, Ifoma cackled, because my handbag alone will silence her. My lace will scatter her eyes, Adima added, raising her cup of palm wine. She will beg for the ground to swallow her. Their laughter rose like fire, but in the distance, a dog barked, then another, until the whole village seemed restless. The elders say when dogs bark without cause, it is because spirits walk among them. But the three friends were too drunk on pride to hear the warning. They laughed louder, drowning out the whispers of fate. On the eve of the August meeting, the village was restless like a drum about to be struck. Tailors worked through the night, their machines humming like crickets. Hairdressers shouted, oils and perfumes spilled. Geli wrapped and unwrapped, wrappers ironed until the smell of hot fabric filled the air. Chugo tried her outfit one last time. She admired her geli, rising so high it almost scraped her doorway. Tomorrow, she whispered, they will kneel with their eyes. Ifoma polished her handbag, kissed it like a baby, and placed it gently on her bed. Tomorrow, enemies will faint. Adima opened her box, gazing at the crystal lace that shimmered like water at sunrise. She twirled in front of the mirror, forgetting the debt waiting like a hungry lion. Tomorrow, I will be a queen. And Dut. She folded her old wrapper neatly, laid it beside her sandals, and sat with her children, telling them a folktale before bed. She slept early, her heart light, her breath steady, for she was ready not with lace or gold but with peace. The morning of the August meeting dawned with drums, laughter, and ululations. The whole village was alive, buzzing like a festival. Women hurried about like ants, perfumes mingling in the air, geli towering like mountains, shoes clicking on the ground like castanets. Children sang songs, men gathered under palm trees to watch, and the old ones shook their heads at the madness. Chugo emerged from her compound like a queen descending from the sky. Her lace sparkled, her geli rose proudly, and whispers followed her. Ah, this one came to blind our eyes. Ifoma walked in like thunder, handbag clutched like treasure, shoes gleaming like polished mirrors. The crowd gasped. She sold her husband's land for that bag. Some admired, some mocked, but all stared. Adima appeared next, her crystal lace shimmering as though the sun had chosen her body as its throne. For a moment, silence fell. People nodded, impressed. Truly, she looks like royalty. Then came Dut, quietly, with her old wrapper and sandals. Few noticed her, and those who did whispered with laughter. This one came to disgrace herself. But Dut walked calmly, her head high, her peace unbroken. The stage was set. The queens had arrived. The gods watched. And the first shadow of disgrace was already moving among them. The women settled into the church compound, fanning themselves as speeches began. The hall smelled of powder, perfume, and fried meat from the food vendors outside. Pride sat heavier in the air than incense. Chugo, Ifoma, and Adima took seats at the front, their outfits glittering like thrones carved from light. The crowd buzzed. Women craned their necks, whispering about the trio. Some envied, some sneered, but no one could ignore them. For a moment, the three basked in glory, their mission Operation Scatter Eyes, in full bloom. But glory is like smoke. It rises quickly, then vanishes. Adima's phone began to vibrate. She ignored it at first, smiling, fanning herself. Then it rang again. And again. Irritated, she swiped to answer, pressing speaker by mistake. A robotic voice filled the microphone. Adima, you are owing 450,000 Nigerian nairas. If you do not pay, we will disgrace you. We will call your husband, your pastor, your in-laws. We will post your face on Facebook. Pay now or face shame. The hall froze. Every ear caught it. Every eye turned. Adima's face drained of color. Whispers rushed like wind. Loan money for lace. The first crack had opened. Adima fumbled with her phone, pressing buttons in panic. But it was too late. The whispers had already taken root. Women leaned toward one another, Hands covering mouths, laughter bubbling. Men at the back shook their heads, muttering. Children giggled without understanding. Chugo nudged Adima, hissing, "Put it off. Pretend it was nothing." Ifeoma forced a smile, trying to laugh it away. But the hall had caught fire. The whispers grew louder. "She borrowed for lace. She will never pay. Shame." Just then, Ifeoma's smartwatch lit up. She glanced down, and her blood ran cold. A message glowed across the screen. "Ifeoma is a debtor. She sold land for handbag. Tell everyone. Share this now." Her eyes widened, her lips trembled. Before she could hide it, the woman beside her snatched a glance, gasped and shouted, "Ah! She sold her husband's land." The hall erupted in laughter. It was no longer whispers. It was thunder. Chugo tried to steady the storm, lifting her chin higher, flashing her gelly like a shield. "Nonsense," she scoffed loudly. "Who among you can dress like me? Debtors or not, my lace still speaks in dollars." She forced a laugh, but her phone buzzed in her handbag. She ignored it once, twice. Then a message arrived with a shrill alert so loud the microphones picked it. "Attention! Chugo is a lone thief. Her husband, her priest, her fellowship leader have all been notified. Beware of this debtor." A ripple ran through the crowd. Phones began vibrating everywhere as contacts received the same broadcast. In less than a minute, WhatsApp groups across Umu filled with Chugo's glamorous photo from that very morning. Captioned, "Slay Queen, Lone Thief, Dubai Lace, Village Disgrace." Chugo's husband, seated at the back, stood suddenly, his face red with fury. He shouted, "Why is my picture on Facebook with the caption "Husband of a Thief"? Woman, what have you done?" His voice carried like a whip, striking her pride to the ground. Chugo's gelly sagged as the weight of shame pressed it down. Chaos filled the compound. Adima's husband stormed in, holding his phone high. "Woman, they just called me from your loan app. You borrowed 450,000 Nigerian nairas behind my back? You want to destroy me." He grabbed her wrist, shaking with fury. Ifeoma's husband pushed through the crowd, shouting, "Where is she? Where is the thief who sold my father's land for a handbag?" His voice cracked like thunder. When he saw her clutching the Milan bag as if it were her life, he tore it from her hand and threw it on the ground. "You sold my bloodline for this toy?" Chugo's husband glared, his voice heavy with shame. "How dare you drag my name into the mud? Now the whole world knows me as husband of a debtor. What kind of queen are you?" The proud trio, who only moments before had sparkled like royalty, now shrank like snails touched by salt. Their glory melted into disgrace before the eyes of the village. The church compound shook with noise, laughter, insults, shouts, curses. Some women clutched their stomachs, laughing until they cried. Others shook their heads, muttering, "What foolishness! Borrowing for lace." Even children began chanting songs. Dubai lace, village disgrace. August queens, September beggars. The three women wept, their makeup streaking down their faces like rivers of shame. Adima covered her eyes, whispering, "I only wanted respect. I only wanted to shine once." Ifeoma clawed at the ground where her handbag lay, screaming, "Give me back my honor." Chugo stood frozen, her gelly lopsided, her pride crushed. And through it all, Dut sat quietly in her old wrapper, her peace untouched. She had no lace, no handbag, no gold, but she had no shame either. She looked at the three women, shook her head gently and whispered, "Your show of today has become your shame of tomorrow." The gods had spoken. The fall had begun. By evening, the disgrace was no longer trapped inside the church compound. The loan apps launched their full war. Across Umu, people's phones buzzed like angry bees. WhatsApp messages poured in. "Meet our golden debtors. Chugo, Ifeoma, Adima. They borrow for lace, they slay for one day, they disgrace forever." Attached were pictures from that very morning. Their geli tall, their smiles wide, their handbags gleaming. Underneath were captions. August slay queens, September beggars. Dubai lace, village disgrace. Even those who had not attended the meeting saw the shame. Farmers in the bush, traders in the market, even distant relatives in Lagos, everyone received the broadcast. By sunset, their faces had gone viral across Nigeria. The three women, once queens for a morning, now became the laughingstock of the nation. The disgrace did not stop at the women. Their husbands carried the heavier burden. Chugo's husband returned from the market only to be mocked by traders. "Ah, husband of Dubai debtor, welcome." His chest burned with anger. Iforma's husband, once respected for his father's land, was greeted with songs by children. He sold land for handbag, oh. He sold land for handbag. He could not walk 5 steps without hearing laughter. Adima's husband received threatening calls directly from the loan agents. "If you do not pay, we will seize your house. Your wife's disgrace is now your disgrace." At work, his colleagues whispered, "So this is the man whose wife borrowed 450,000 Nigerian nairas to shine for one day?" The men who once stood tall in their families now walked with heads bowed. Shame had chained them, and they dragged it wherever they went. By the next morning, Umu's market turned into a theater of mockery. Traders sang while selling their goods. "Come and buy lace that will put you on Facebook. Come and buy handbag that will sell your father's land. Come and buy crystal shoes that cost you your husband's job." Children danced around, chanting the songs of disgrace. Even strangers laughed when they saw the trio. Flyers appeared on walls and market stalls, showing their pictures beside their debt amounts. Some people pretended to sell them at auction. Who will buy Chugo for 10 Nigerian nairas? Who will buy Adima's lace for 50 Nigerian nairas? The laughter was cruel, sharp, endless. And at the center of it all, the three women walked through the market like shadows, their heads bent low, wishing the earth would open and swallow them. The disgrace was too heavy for the village to ignore. The elders gathered beneath the iroko tree, their walking sticks tapping the ground in anger. "Never in the history of Umu," one elder declared, "have women dragged our name into such shame. The world now laughs at us." Even on radio, they are saying, "Umu, the village of lace debtors." Another elder sighed, stroking his beard. "This is not only the women's shame. It is our collective disgrace. If we do not act, our children will grow with this stain." They called for the women's fellowship leaders, demanding answers. And the leaders, shamed beyond measure, suspended Chugo, Iforma, and Adima from all activities. "Until your debts are cleared and your names cleansed," they said, "you have no place among us." The three women wept, begging for mercy. But the elders were firm. "You chose lace over dignity, handbag over honor, gold over peace. Now, you must drink the cup you poured for yourselves." While the village mocked and the trio drowned in shame, Dut walked quietly through life with her dignity intact. Women who once laughed at her wrapper now greeted her with respect. Some even whispered, "Ah, maybe simplicity is better. At least Dut sleeps without fear." Her children, once teased for their mother's plain clothes, now walked proudly, saying, "Our mother is the only one not on Facebook disgrace." Even men in the village told their wives, "Learn from Dut. Lace is sweet, but shame is bitter." Dut never mocked the fallen women. She greeted them kindly when they passed, though they could barely lift their eyes to meet hers. In her heart, she carried no pride, only gratitude that she had chosen peace over vanity. And so, while the queens of August wore crowns of shame, Dut, the humble one, wore an invisible crown of honor. The gods had balanced the scales, and the village had learned who the true queen was. By the third day, the shame had crossed the borders of Umu. A popular Lagos radio station aired the story. Breaking news. 3 village women borrow hundreds of thousands just to slay at August meeting. Loan apps expose them. Laughter poured from the speakers across Nigeria. Callers phoned in, mocking, "No lace meeting or debtors meeting." Television picked it up next. On national news, Chugo's face flashed across the screen. The reporter announced, "Meet Chugo, once Queen of Dubai Lace, now Queen of Disgrace. A warning to all women borrowing for vanity." Clips of her walking proudly into the meeting played side by side with WhatsApp screenshots of her debt exposure. In Lagos, Abuja, Enugu, everywhere, people laughed, shared, ridiculed. Their names became hashtags. Hashtag Golden Debtors. Hashtag Dubai Disgrace. Hashtag August Slay September Pay. The trio had wished to scatter eyes. Now they scattered shame across an entire nation. Back in Umu, the children invented new playground songs. They clapped and danced in circles, chanting, "Borrow lace, borrow shoe. Loan app calling, shame for you. August shine, September cry. Debtor queen, your name will die." They marched past the compounds of Chugo, Ifeoma, and Adima, singing at the top of their voices. Even toddlers who could barely speak hummed the tune. The women could not step outside without hearing the sting of laughter. To fetch water, to buy food, even to go to church became impossible. Their children wept, begging, "Mama, why are they singing about us?" But the mothers had no answer. They had stitched their own disgrace, and now the whole village wore it as entertainment. Inside their homes, the storm was worse. Chugo's husband refused to share a bed with her, his pride too wounded. He shouted day and night, "You have ruined our name. Even the priest will not look me in the eye. What kind of wife are you?" Their children sat in corners, frightened by the endless quarrels. Ifeoma's husband filed a case in the village court, demanding his land back. "She had no right to sell it. She is not my wife, she is my enemy." He spat her name like poison. Ifeoma knelt in tears, begging, but he would not listen. Adima's husband lost his job for a time, shamed by the phone calls that followed him everywhere. His boss told him, "Your wife's disgrace is our embarrassment. Stay away until you clear it." At home, he turned cold, eating silently, refusing to look at her. Adima collapsed many nights, whispering to herself, "I only wanted respect. I only wanted to shine once." The walls of their houses became prisons of regret. On Sunday, the Women's Fellowship called an emergency meeting. The church compound was packed. One leader stood and declared, "Chugo, Ifeoma, Adima, you have shamed us before God and before the world. You are hereby suspended from all women's fellowship duties. You cannot lead prayer, cannot sing in choir, cannot sit on the front bench." The congregation clapped, some in agreement, some in mockery. The three women knelt, weeping, their gelly gone, their wrappers plain. They begged, "Forgive us, sisters. It was only pride. We did not know it would end this way." But the pastor's wife spoke sternly. "The Bible says pride goes before destruction. You ignored warnings. Now you must bear your lesson. Until you repay and repent, you cannot return." The women walked out of the church compound with bowed heads, their shame heavier than their gold had ever been. Chugo could not bear it anymore. Each day, her face flashed on Facebook as a debtor. Each night her husband cursed her name. She stopped eating, stopped bathing, hiding inside her house as neighbors mocked outside her gate. One morning, she tore her gelly to pieces, screaming, "This gelly has destroyed me." Her children clung to her legs, crying. Ifeoma tried to return to the market, but the traders burst into laughter the moment she arrived. One held up a handbag, shouting, "Come and buy land for free." The crowd roared with laughter. Ifeoma dropped her basket and ran, tears streaming, her pride ground to dust. Adima faced the harshest blow. Her loan balance grew daily with interest, and the calls never stopped. One night, her husband shouted, "Woman, you have finished me. If you do not leave this house, I will leave instead." Adima fell to the floor, wailing, "I only wanted to shine once." But the gods were silent. Pride had pushed her into a pit, and now there was no rope to pull her out. The village court summoned the three women. Men, women, and children filled the square to watch, their laughter sharp as knives. The judge shook his head as the charges were read, land sold without permission, debts hidden from husbands, disgrace to the community. The women knelt, their once bright wrappers dull, their faces swollen with tears. They tried to explain, but their voices broke under the weight of ridicule. The judge declared, "From this day, let it be known, Chugo Ifeoma Adima, you are suspended from all village gatherings until your debts are cleared. You will carry this shame as a warning to others." The crowd cheered. Songs of mockery rose again, echoing through the square. The three women covered their faces, wishing for death, but death did not come. Only laughter, sharp and endless. Their homes became deserts. Friends no longer visited. Relatives avoided them. Even hawkers refused to greet when passing by. The compounds of Chugo, Ifeoma, and Adima fell silent except for the cries of children. At night, the women wept until their pillows were wet. Chugo whispered, "I wore lace for one day, but shame wears me every day." Ifeoma muttered, "I sold land for a handbag, and now I cannot even carry water without disgrace." Adima groaned, "Debt is heavier than gold. It crushes my chest every morning." The glory they once sought had turned into chains around their necks. The August meeting had ended, but their shame remained, a shadow that followed them even into their dreams. Meanwhile, Dut lived as she always had, simply. But now, wherever she went, people greeted her with respect. Women said, "That is the one who chose peace over lace." Men told their wives, "Learn from her humility." Even children sang songs of her wisdom. She never boasted, never mocked the fallen women. Instead, when she saw them, she greeted them gently, offering food or water. Some of them could not even answer, too crushed by shame. Yet her kindness became her crown. She had not fought for glory, but glory had found her. One evening, the elders gathered under the iroko tree and declared, "From today, let Dut be remembered as the true queen of Umu, not because of lace or gold, but because she wore dignity." The villagers clapped, nodding in agreement. Dut's name rose like incense, while the others' names sank like stones in a muddy river. Seasons passed. The story of the three proud friends became a tale told by firesides, whispered to daughters, and preached in churches. Children recited it as a rhyme, traders used it as a warning, and elders ended disputes with it. Remember the golden debtors of Umu. Pride sweetens for a day, but shame peppers for life. Chugo, Ifeoma, and Adima lived with the scars of their folly, marked forever as a lesson. Their laughter, once loud and cruel, had turned into silence. Their pride, once towering, had crumbled into dust. But Dut walked freely, debt-free, shame-free, her name spoken with respect. She had no lace, no gold, no handbag worth land, but she had peace, and peace was heavier than gold. And so the folktale ends where it began, with the drumbeat of August. But now the lesson is carved into the heart of Umu. Your show of today can become your shame tomorrow. Better a wrapper of peace than a lace of disgrace. Please kindly share, subscribe, and like this video, for more stories are coming.